Tonight, we've got someone who isn't just making music and entertainment, she's making a real impact. Montana Tucker, actress, singer, social media powerhouse, is using her voice to educate, advocate, and stand up for Jewish identity and Holocaust awareness. In the wake of October 7 and the Hamas attacks, she's been speaking out louder than ever, pushing for justice and change. This is someone who walks the walk. So stick around, because you're going to meet someone that moves with courage, someone that speaks out when others just simply do not. And you're going to want to hear what she has to say. Welcome, everybody. Listen, I'm going to introduce you to Montana Tucker today. She's not just a performer. She is a force for change. And she's sitting down with me to talk about resilience, purpose, and stories that really matter since October 7th. And she's earned honors like Variety's Social Impact Award, and she's captivated audiences with her series on Jewish identity and perseverance. And most recently, she led The Children of October 7th, a powerful documentary. I think it's the #1 documentary in the history of Paramount Plus. Haven't seen it, it's a must watch. And you may think, oh, that's going to be tough to watch. And, parts of it are tough, I will admit. But I'll tell you this, it's moving, it's inspiring, and you'll be a better person for having watched it. Montana, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really. Thank you for having me.
And congratulations on the documentary. What led you to do that?
Thank you. It is a big accomplishment because I'm just grateful that these children have a voice and a platform, and that a major streaming platform like Paramount Plus decided to pick it up. Anything related to October 7th is so sensitive, and especially anything to do with Israel. I feel like everyone is scared to touch it. So I'm really grateful that they gave these children a voice and a platform. I've always worked with kids. If you look at my social media platforms, way before October 7th, I've always danced with kids and just had a very special connection with them. And so when I got approached to do this project, it was an immediate yes, of course. They first asked, how much would you charge for something like this? I said, absolutely nothing. There's not even a chance I would charge for this. And this is before we knew Paramount was going to pick it up. This is when they were just wanting me to, share this on my social media platforms. These kids, I interviewed them a year after October 7th. So a year after they already had to go through all that trauma. And I'm grateful they felt comfortable opening up with me and recounting their stories. A lot of them hadn't done any interviews before opening up with me. And some of them knew me from TikTok or saw my dance videos, so they felt a little bit more comfortable sharing with me. But this documentary, I say it over and over, is not political. It doesn't go into the conflict. It's just a series of testimonies from these young children recounting what happened to them on that day and what has happened to them for the past year at the time of interviewing them. And it's only 36 minutes. It's a short watch, but a very powerful and, like you said, necessary watch. And it's not easy. I have to admit, it's not an easy watch, but it's unfortunately necessary.
Yeah, and that's why I said, I don't want to mislead people. It's not a fun, ha-ha watch, but it is a life-changing watch. I mean, it causes you to get outside yourself and realize the impact that world events can have on other people. And you bring an energy to it and an authenticity to it that's so important. You know my wife, Robin. You did her podcast a long time ago. When I said I was interviewing you, she said, you are a force of nature.
Coming from her, that is an honor.
She couldn't say enough about that. I'm apolitical. I deal with cultural issues, not politics. Don't know enough about it to discuss it intelligently. But you said something earlier that I'd really like to get your take on. We've both spent a lot of time in Hollywood and that whole area out there. And you said anything about Israel and October 7th, a lot of people don't even want to touch. That's been my experience as well, because I had a show in Hollywood for 21 years. and decided to launch my own network, which I've done now. But when this happened, I was stunned that so many of the people in Hollywood that are Jewish were silent, said nothing about this. Has that surprised you?
It's been the most shocking. I'm the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and I always grew up hearing their stories my whole life, right? And I grew up hearing stories of them saying they had friends that they were friends with their whole lives, that the second all the announcements came out about the Jews and everything that was going on with, the Jews being the reason for all the problems in the world that turned on them, right? You heard those stories. I heard those stories my whole life. When all this happened, you're talking about the Jews specifically, it makes no sense to me because God forbid there was another Holocaust that would happen, which we know is not happening, right? But let's say in some alternate universe, another Holocaust happens. Those Jews that are not proud to be Jewish or not declaring their Jewish identity or saying they don't stand for Israel, whatever it is, they would be on that list. They'd be on that list. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how successful you are, how rich you are.
They would be at the top of the list.
Exactly. So that makes no sense to me. I've had so many people behind the scenes to me, and I don't know if you've had this happen to you as well, come up to me behind the scenes, and they're at even a way different level in their career as me, right? And they come up to me saying, "Thank you so much for everything you're doing," like quietly. And that makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me. Now is the time that I feel like every Jew and non-Jew, and that's why we are so grateful for you and all of our allies, because this is the time we all need to step up, because we have the power to change our future. And, anti-Semitism has unfortunately always been there. It's never gone away. It's just unfortunately now more popular. And especially with the younger generation, which I have such a big following with the younger generation, it's becoming trendy and cool and popular and socially acceptable to be anti-Semitic and just to be hateful towards any group of people, as you see now on these platforms. It's like promoted. Like the more negative and controversial you are, the more you're promoted, unfortunately, on these types of platforms.
Why do you think it's taken that bent? Because, one of the first things I did was speak out about what was happening on the Ivy League campuses. It went beyond anti-Semitism. It was pro-terrorist.
Yeah.
And you can dress it up however you want to, but it's pro-terrorist groups.
Yep.
Hamas has killed at least 48 Americans since its formation in the early 1980s. And they have been holding American hostages. I think they just released the last alive American hostage just a few days ago. They still have 4, we think, dead American hostages. They haven't released their remains. And yet we have right here, you and I are in New York City right now, and not far from here, Columbia University, we have students that are, at first, it was a thin veil of pro-Palestinian. There's not even a veil now. It's pro-Hamas.
Nope.
And these are young people. I have my theories about why they're doing it. What do you think?
It's so interesting because I actually did a video with a man from Gaza. And he grew up in Gaza until he was, I believe, 16 or 17. And he left because of Hamas. And he lost several family members in this war, okay? And him and I did a video on Washington Square Park together. I do these videos a lot in public where I go out and try to have conversations and really try to come to an understanding with each other. He is so against what is going on these college campuses. And this is a man from Gaza with family members who died in this war. And he was getting into arguments with people who had no ties in the Middle East whatsoever. Not Israel, not Gaza, nowhere in the Middle East. And he was getting into arguments with people because they were telling him how he should feel about this war and how he should feel about Israel. And he is always going against what is going on in the college campuses. So they're not. I mean, listen, I'm sure there are people who are genuinely, for the people. But I've been to UCLA right after the encampment started and the protests started. And I just tried to have conversations with people to see what they were doing there, what message they really wanted to portray. They wouldn't speak to me. They said I had to speak to a media liaison, said I'm an agitator when I was just trying to have a conversation. They all had their masks on. None of them, I think, really knew what they were doing there, to be honest. And then when I went to the media liaison, wouldn't speak to me. Then they formed a human barricade on public property. Started with 2 people and wouldn't let me walk through because they knew I was Jewish or pro-Israel and I wasn't allowed to be there.
Yeah, I had exactly the same experience. I was on the UCLA campus towards the end of the encampment and also on the night that they took the encampment down.
Oh, wow.
And I went to the Hallel and talked to a lot of students, some Israeli, some former IDF, and some that were just born in LA and were going to UCLA. They were just Jewish students. And they were telling me, these people want us dead.
Yeah.
They follow us around and say, yeah, we want you dead. And they said they surround us on campus and won't let us go to our classes in the library. I went to speak to those in the encampment, wouldn't speak to me.
Of course.
I said, you need to speak to our media liaison.
And everything they were saying was it's like you could tell they were given like a rule book of what to say, what to do, and that was it.
Yeah, and they've got masks on. And so I interviewed some of the Jewish students right in front of these people at the gate. And I'm saying, do you believe they want you dead? They're saying, oh, absolutely want us dead. We're looking at them and they're going, yeah. I mean, they're not even, they don't even pretend.
Yeah.
And so you are so popular really in every demo, but certainly with the young people. Who are the young people that are so responsive to you? Because so many of this younger generation have jumped on the pro-Palestinian bandwagon, but yet you still seem to connect with such a massive audience. How do you explain that? Despite some post-election optimism, Wall Street is already bracing for a rough rest of 2025. When Warren Buffett starts dumping blue chip stocks and stacking up cash, you've got to ask yourself, what does he see coming? I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. When uncertainty is this high, smart people look for stability. That's why physical gold and silver might just be what your finances need. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil, that's DRPHIL to 50505 today.
Well, for me, that's why I try to make all my content very unique and different. I actually made a dance video at the Nova site, and I went with a dance company from Israel that lost 3 of their members at the Nova Music Festival. And I went with Nova survivors, and I went with one released hostage that was kidnapped from Nova, Moran Stelly and I. And so when you watch this video, for the first half of it, you think you're watching like a music video. It's like a high production, like music video style video. And then halfway through, you're hit with the reality of what happened at Nova. And the story is told through dance. And I've always said dance is a universal language. Music is a universal language. So that video cut through a whole different audience. It got, I think, like 15 million views across platforms and like 30,000 comments or something like that. But if you look through the comments, they aren't just from Jews. They aren't just from people who are pro-Israel. They're from the younger generation saying, oh my gosh, that could have been me. I go to Coachella. I go to EDC. I go to Outside Lands. That could have been me. And they got it.
You're meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
Instead of asking them to meet you where you are. And that's what bridges the gap with your content,
Yeah.
I think. People respond to it in that way.
And also the Children of October 7th, why that documentary was so important to me as well, is because the documentary is, yes, I'm the one asking the questions, but it's not about me. It's truly about these children. And I think that when people are hearing from kids close to their own age, their ages 11 to 17 of who I interviewed. So for me, this documentary is important for college students, but also high school students, high schoolers, middle schoolers, everyone, all the generations need to watch it because they're going to hear from kids. You know, we think about the Shoah Foundation. My grandparents did the Shoah Foundation, right? But that was told by the survivors when they were in their later years in life. this documentary is told by the children that are still experiencing this. I think it's like one of the first times something like, obviously like this has been happening or has happened, of course, where it's told in real time when they're still kids. And so that's why I'm hoping, and it's already cut through. At first, it was just for the United States, and it's going to be international, which I'm really excited for on Paramount.
You say that your grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And I found in talking to young people that it's not on their radar. It's not something that they've ever learned about or know ever took place. It's not a reality to them. That's hard to imagine. And you're keeping that alive with storytelling. And you visited Auschwitz, and you say it changed the way you see the world.
Oh, yeah. For me, it's so interesting you say that, because Holocaust education, every state in the United States doesn't have to teach about the Holocaust, which is so crazy. I grew up in Florida. So Florida was a state that had to teach about the Holocaust. There are just genuine people that genuinely don't know, which is such a foreign concept to me. And my following isn't just the United States. My following is all around the world. So for me, when my grandpa passed away, he passed away at age 97. My grandma Lily is still alive today at age 96, but unfortunately suffering Alzheimer's disease of 16 years. My grandparents were my whole life, still are my whole life. And I knew I had to do something, with their testimonies, their stories. And at first, my mom and I, we were just going to go to Poland, go visit Auschwitz, where my grandma's a survivor of. And then we said, I have the platform. I have millions of people that I could potentially educate about the Holocaust. And by the way, my content leading up to that was very fun, happy, dancing, singing. There was nothing about activism on my platforms yet, not because it was intentional, but just because I was a dancer and a singer and actress. But I would do videos with people of all races, all ages, all ethnicities, trying to always unite people through music and dance. But it wasn't until my docuseries. And then we made that docuseries for the younger generation. And it ended up really making a big impact and taking off in a really, really special way. And it got to the younger generation. And I actually visited a bunch of schools where the teachers told me that the kids were not paying attention in class before. And then I came to the school to talk about my series, and some of them knew me from TikTok. And I'm like, I'm not here to dance, guys. I'm here to teach you about the Holocaust. And the teacher said they ended up really paying attention way more in class. And Holocaust education is so important to me. And that's why I will always, even recently, I just posted some more clips of my grandparents' testimonies from the Show Up Foundation and made a whole video about that. It's the most important thing.
It is stunning to me when I learned that there are states where they don't teach about such a significant event in human history as the Holocaust. How can you teach history and not teach where 6 million human beings were exterminated? I just try to put myself in a position that people putting together a curriculum are sitting in a room and they say, okay, what are we going to include? And they come to that and go, nah.
It's such a huge part of our history. Have you been to Auschwitz or Poland?
I have not, and I absolutely intend to. And when people ask me about the most impactful books I've ever read, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, the first half of it, where he talks about his experiences there, had a huge impact on me. His storytelling about that led me to read other books and learn about it. And maybe that's why I had it's those early experiences all the way back to the 6th grade is maybe why I had such a strong reaction to October 7th and seeing what was happening on our college campuses, because there's just a complete absence of critical thinking. I mean, how can people be critically thinking and reasoning their way through what's happening in the world and take the positions they're taking? They just can't. They're not thinking. And our universities are not teaching them to critically think, or they wouldn't be taking the positions they're thinking.
Well, it's scary because I remember, like, you look at what happened during the Holocaust and you look at the colleges. There are images that are so similar to what was happening on the college campuses back then. as well to what is happening now. And you talked about, and I don't think I fully answered when you said how when I went to Auschwitz, when I did my Holocaust series, How to Never Forget, how that changed me. I think my experience at Auschwitz and me doing that series is 100% one of the main reasons why I had this full reaction as well after October 7th. You know, I always say, and maybe you can help me understand if this could possibly be it. I say it could be like a generational trauma of some sort that I felt that right when October 7th happened, it was like everything completely changed in me. I couldn't even leave my place for a week because I felt guilty looking at my view outside. I felt guilty doing anything besides knowing what was going on in Israel. And I felt that, okay, if I have the millions of followers, this is even before like the crazy propaganda was coming out and all the craziness we started really seeing about the world. Like you would think the world everyone would be with Israel of what happened. You would just think it would be a no-brainer of what happened and how everyone would see it. And I just knew I had to do everything that I could to continue sharing the truth, simply the truth, and speak for humanity. That's all. That's all I've done, and that's all I continue to do, is go and share real-life, personal stories. I've met with all of the hostage families, released hostages, Nova survivors, kibbutzim survivors, the documentary, the children. Like, for me, it's important to just keep sharing these real, personal stories, and I feel it's like my duty. Like, I feel like I absolutely have to. There's no other option for me.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. My network, Merit TV, has it all.
Now, let me blow your mind.
Merit TV's got the news that matters.
The selection of a new pope.
Entertainment you crave.
Busted. Everybody in a good mood today?
And live events.
Surprise.
What am I, chopped liver?
With serious punch.
Big shot.
Go to merittv.com and download the Merit TV app today.